Hello once again, witchy people. This should be a pretty quick video, possibly. So, quite a while back I did a series about baneful herbs, including most people's favourite, Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade. And recently, a subscriber, Penta Penta, asked me, could I elaborate or give her some sort of like places to go to look for information about belladonna. So, and it kind of got me thinking about where I get my information from, because most of what I know about belladonna was in that video, most of it, and it wasn't a very long video. You know, I mean, apart from the stuff that no one really wants to know about. So I thought I'd give a few pointers on how to look for information about the less obvious herbs and baneful herbs. So my first and number one piece of advice would be, don't look for magical, pagan or witchcraft websites. First thing to do is to look for sites, botanical sites, specifically about the plant you're looking for, because most botanical sites, like botanical garden, quite a lot of botanical gardens have their own websites. They will, and horticultural websites will have a bit about belladonna, you know, about the herb you're looking for. They won't just have the name and how it looks. They'll have a bit more about that. Especially, like I said, botanical garden websites are brilliant. Now, if I showed you my bookshelf, not these because obviously, but my bookshelf which holds books, you would find two whole shelves there, about this size, just full of books, gardening books, hedgerow, you know, books about plants, the hedgerows and local plants. Then you'll find another section, and this is my tip number 2, which is completely about folklore. So, and superstitions. Now, that's another. The other thing is, I should mention is most of the information. If I have to look up information, I'll do it in the books I've got rather than go online, because I'm old, and that's what old people do. That's what old people who don't like computers do. I know it's weird, you know, YouTube channel and everything, and I'm not that keen on computers really. I think they're amazing, gets people together, but in general they're too expensive and there's too much stuff on there I don't want to know. Anyway, besides the point. So yeah, most of my stuff comes from books rather than the internet. Okay. So yeah, that the second tip. Look for folklore and superstitions. And obviously there's going to be a lot of information about folklore and superstition sites, websites. Thirdly, and this is kind of on the folklore and superstition as well, ask your family. If you have a local park that has a park keeper in it and they're more older, sometimes if they're younger, but people used to get into jobs like that because of their love for fauna and flora. Not so much these days, that they're kind of pushed into it because of youth training schemes and such like, or because they want to be outdoors. So yeah, ask people. Definitely ask around. So tip number 3, ask your relatives, ask your, you know, the local gardeners. If you're friendly with someone up the street and you see they have stuff growing in their garden, ask them, because they will know a little bit about what they've planted and why they planted it. So you can kind of see the way I'm going. Okay, tip number 4. As well as superstition and folklore, a really good place to look up information is history books. So you'll get a lot of information from books about the ancient Greece, the ancient Romans, the ancient Egyptians, even ancient Celts. Across the board, any ancient people, but a lot of history, as in prehistory sort of history, will have a lot of information about possibly how these plants were used in certain times like in Neolithic times and such, and early history, there'll be quite a lot of information there. And also how the plant used to be used medicinally. Now, I have been told that the Cunningham Book of Herbs is very good, Scott Cunningham, which is, because it's Scott Cunningham, it'll probably be published by Llewellyn, I don't know, but probably will be. Scott Cunningham's Book of Herbs is absolutely amazing. They have information about Atropa belladonna in there, though they do advise you not to use it. It also gives you that advice about how they used to use belladonna as witch ointment, when they used to boil the plant in fat and then apply that fat to their skin to give hallucinatory sort of effect. Obviously, once again, not really advised. So, yeah. And then tip number 4 is, getting ahead of myself, look for witchcraft books. Now, you can look for, now I used to have this book called Baneful Herbs. I'll be darned if I can find it now. It's just, I cannot find it anywhere. I do not know where it is. This is where I just look tentatively behind me to make sure it's not on a shelf behind me. See, I've looked for it everywhere, but there is a book specifically about baneful herbs. So that's a good one also to sort of like have, but although that won't give you that much information, because it tends to be more of a book of notations about these herbs. Of course, tip number 5 would be search the internet, specifically search the internet. So, and I hate to advertise one search engine over another. I mean, my son does not use at all the same web browsers as I do. I think it's, I use the web browser that I'm most used to using. I don't like change in that sort of sense. So I use Google because Google is what I'm used to. I do have Bing and I cannot use Bing. It just doesn't give me the results that I want when I put in the words that I want. I know how to use Google, so therefore Google is the one that I use. Be very careful of what you put in. So use words, like I said, if you're thinking about the different tips that I've just given you, use words like botanical, horticultural, garden centres, botanical information, things like that. And then go on to historical uses for things like that. So yeah, that's really it. Be careful how you word things. I suppose that would be tip number 5. So these are all things that you can do to help you find what you're looking for about specific plants that maybe are a bit more harder to find information about because they are considered dangerous, such as baneful herbs. Like, saying that, belladonna, because it's not grown necessarily as a gardening plant, and it is what most people consider to be a wild plant, you don't get much information on it. It's not a pretty plant. I think it is, but it grows in the wild. It's very much considered a weed. I mean, in the summer when I walk up our road, there's a lot of like hedgerows and stuff, and it's all got belladonna in it, Atropa belladonna. But things like aconite, monkshood, wolfsbane, these things are pretty, and foxgloves, they're grown in your garden, so it's easier to get information about them because they're a plant that's pretty and they're a garden plant, even if they are just as poisonous as things like belladonna. So like I said, definitely do a search, ask around folklore, superstition, history, botanical, all these things before you go onto the pagan and witchcraft websites and magical uses for. And it's also very useful if you're going to search for magical uses for a plant. Search not just for magical as a witch would spell it, with the K after the C, but also normal magical without the K. You won't get as many search results, but there may be some there that you didn't find before. So there you go, my tips and tricks for looking up information about, or finding information about, belladonna, Atropa belladonna, deadly nightshade, and other plants like those that are considered to be baneful and are not popular. Hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching. Thank you very much, Penta Penta, for your comments, and I will see you all very soon. Bye for now.